Hi, I'm Robin Avery. I'm one of the transplant oncology ID attendings. Nice to meet you. Jeff Tornheim and I are going to talk a little bit to you today about living in the DC area and working at Hopkins. So my background is I spent 19 years as an ID attending at Cleveland Clinic. I moved to Johns Hopkins in 2012, but actually 5 years before that, my husband had taken a job at NIH, so he was literally flying back and forth from here to Cleveland every week. And so I was delighted when Hopkins turned out to have a transplant oncology ID position. I was able to move out here and reunite the family. My main academic interests, by the way, are in post-transplant viral infections, particularly resistant refractory CMV, immunologically high-risk transplant recipients, and actually most recently COVID in the immunocompromised population. So anyway, in 2012, I joined the Hopkins faculty. We decided to live in Silver Spring, which we actually love for a couple of reasons. For one is it's pretty easy for my husband to get to Bethesda and Rockville for his NIH responsibilities. We're also modern Orthodox Jews, and we live near a synagogue in a very nice, friendly community. It's a suburb, but we live on the edge of a forest. There's a beautiful garden public called Brookside Gardens, a lot of walking trails and so forth. And we live in a group of 15 townhouses with people who are lovely, quite ethnically and diverse in terms of age and background. And we've had some intergenerational friendships. So we have really enjoyed living there. In terms of the commute, it was a little bit of an adjustment for me because in Cleveland, there's really not much traffic. But I've not only gotten used to it, but also embraced it. If I leave early or late and avoid the peak rush hour when there's less traffic, I can make it in about 45 to 50 minutes. At other times, it would take longer. And initially, when I had a car that had a CD player, I was listening to language tapes. I was trying to improve my Hebrew and learn some beginning Arabic. But now that I have a car that doesn't have a CD player, I pretty much listen to public radio the whole way. And I have to say, this has been a great experience for me. I've probably never been as well informed on current events as I am now, because I simply never took this kind of time before. So I drive straight up 95 for about the first 2/3 of the way. I'm listening to WAMU, which is the American University NPR station. And then about 2/3 of the way there, I switch over to WYPR, which is the Baltimore public radio station. And then in between, I listen to classical music on WETA. So the advantage of this is you get to hear a lot about local events and hear from local people and communities in both the DC and Baltimore area. So I've really come to embrace this. Some people think of a commute as a drag, but I actually think of it now as having enhanced my life in that regard. There are also some times that I simply turn off the radio if I'm dealing with a complicated patient situation that I don't understand clinically. I'll simply just think as I drive. And sometimes when I arrive at the other end, I will have sorted out what I think the plan should be. In terms of getting into DC, because of my husband's and my schedule, we actually don't go into DC very much. But when we do, we've been able to enjoy special exhibits at museums or meetings and things of that nature. But for those of you who are able to, there's certainly many, many things going on in terms of political organizing and artistic and theatrical, a lot of things going on. And definitely, I would say this is very doable if you have a spouse or partner who wants to live or work in the DC area and you're going to be commuting to Hopkins. So I, again, welcome all of you. And I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Jeff Tornheim, to give his perspective. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Robin. I think that as a junior faculty member, I think that I've followed in a lot of ways in many of the lessons that you've taught and in many of the things that you've mentioned about the commute and living in the other city. So as Robin mentioned, my name is Jeff Tornheim. I joined faculty after completing fellowship at Hopkins in 2017. And my work has largely focused on cohort epidemiology of multi and extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis in India, as well as a lot of work on biomarkers and diagnostic tests, as well as drug resistance assessments using whole genome sequencing. So for me, I actually lived in Baltimore for the first couple of years that I was at Hopkins, and I had a great time. But in the course of transitioning to India, I ended up meeting my now wife, and for us as a couple, it made a lot more sense for us to be based in Washington D.C. She walks to work, and I do commute up. And it's also, as Robin mentioned, quite doable. For us, I think that the benefits have largely been a combination of the restaurants and theater and political events and museums that are based in the center of the city where we are, as well as great access to a lot of the green space. We'll frequently just leave our house to go running in the woods for 10 to 15 miles from our front door. But I think that on top of all of that, the time that I'm spending going back and forth to Baltimore, similar to Robin, I spent some time doing some language learning, and I've also been able to take advantage of the advice that I've gotten from so many mentors over the years, that you need to make sure that you have a good life outside of medicine, which having the time to listen to both podcasts and lots of books has been really, really wonderful for me to delve back into literature. It's also been really nice for me to have a diversity of opinions in our social circle, because the network that we have here is based on friends that we developed in high school and college and graduate school for both me and my wife, which has led to a lot of really good deep conversations and essay clubs, which has, I think, been really intrinsic in keeping us whole. So just as Robin said, this has been definitely doable for me, having done it for the past 3 years, in addition to the commute to our clinical site out of the country. And we look forward to hearing from you during the rest of the recruitment process.